Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video I'm going to give my reading wrap-up for the week of March 2nd through March 8th. I completed one book late Saturday, March 1st, so I didn't review it in that video because I already recorded the video, so I'm going to review that book in this video. And I read parts of 5 books this week, so I'm going to talk briefly about those books. I'm going to talk about a pair of Wobbles I completed. I'm going to talk about a readathon I'm going to take part in. I'll probably talk about some other events in my life. The book I completed on March 1st is The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendoline Kiste. In this book, there is a neighborhood of 8 houses, Velkwood, that just overnight something happens in that after this event occurs, no one can exit or enter except for 3 young women. The government tries to figure out what happened, but they are unable to do so, so eventually they just kind of barricade the location off. But 20 years after the event occurred, a private organization gets a grant from the government, and they're going to investigate, and they try to enlist each of the 3 young women to go back in. They fail with the first 2, but the third, Talitha, they succeed with, and the story goes from there. In addition to the haunting aspects of it, there's also each of the 3 young women now, around 40, late 30s. They didn't specify exactly, but it has trauma from that time, and they each deal with it in their different ways. And as the story goes back and forth in time, it touches upon the trauma. This was a book that I really didn't want to put down. I just wanted to keep reading it. There is some things, though, that I should warn people about. There is a abusive stepfather to one of the girls, and there's an implication, although it's not totally clear to me, that he might have SA'd the girl. There is one of the girls her mother was a homophobe, and she ingrained it in her. There is some fairly graphic descriptions of some injuries. I really enjoyed the book, though. I recommend it to anyone who would like to have an interesting take on not really a haunted house, but a haunted neighborhood book, and also that talks about the trauma that people have and how they have to come to terms with it before they can move on, hopefully. My only provisos would be just be aware that the concerns I mentioned. If those things are a problem for you, you might not want to read the book. But I quite enjoyed it. I rated it 5 stars. It's the first 5-star book I've read this year, I believe. Now I want to talk briefly about the 5 books I was part of this week. First is Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne. I talked about this in previous videos. It is a serial killer romance, so enough said, and don't want to say too much about it. But so far there's been, though, a few brutal scenes, but mostly it's more about the 2 main characters trying to tiptoe around their attraction to one another. I should say, too, that The Haunting of Velkwood was the February read for Fright Club, moderated by Cliff at Cliff's Dark Gems and Crits at Crits_reads. And the guest host for it was Jen at Literally Love 123. It was quite a interesting, fun discussion of the book, which occurred Sunday, March 2nd. The second book I read part of this week is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This was a read starting February 15th for Booked and Busy, moderated by Jaime, at Jaime Fock on here. I am enjoying the book, but I hit a spot where there was a kind of a racist cop, and a little difficult for me to read simply because in the U.S. at this time, racists have been emboldened recently, so I struggle a little bit with that. So one of the things I kind of decided is that even if I'm reading books for book clubs, I'm kind of going to read them at my own pace, even if I don't complete them by the required time. I'm going to try to start them early, but I'm not going to hold myself to read them if they're disturbing to me. But it is a good book. It's just I have to read it at certain times. The third book I read part of this week is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I started it this week. This is the March read for I'm With a Band, moderated by MJ. Read This Life at M-J on here. This is another book I think I need to read maybe at the right times. Basically, we see early on this book, it's set, I believe, about 500 years in the future from now. Society basically conditions, I don't know if think of a better word, but from a very young age, from infant age, they conditioned people to become fit into certain job descriptions, classes, have certain intelligence, and as I said, even from infants, and the infant part is especially hard to read. It's almost like, it's kind of like an assembly line. They do certain things so certain people will come out of it. The idea, I think, is that this is supposed to be a utopian world, but it's the negatives that can come with that. A book that's quite interesting, but I have to, as I said, another one that can be somewhat disturbing, and I have to read it when I feel right reading it. But I did start this one early, so I should be able to finish this one by the end of the month. I guess the scary thing to me, too, is I'm not sure about the science in here, because I think it came out in 1938. But the things I talk about, I know for a fact that there are some people who would like this kind of idea, to be able to create various groups of humans to fit in various job classifications and certain classes. The fourth book I read this week is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I started reading it this week. This is the March-April read for The Cozy Club, moderated by Stephanie Bookish, at Stephanie Bookish on here. In this book, there is a woman who is kind of, her love life is floundering, and her daughter calls into a late night, like, love help radio station show, and she catches her daughter doing it, but she ends up talking to the host. And this book is, I won't say more than that, but this book is really, really amusing. The author has great dialogue. It's alternating between the two main characters. Lucy, who's the woman, she's a mechanic and raising her daughter. She does have a little bit of a family group with the daughter's father, who's not with her. He's a childhood friend, and he lives with his boyfriend, I think husband now. And the four of them are kind of a little family group. But other than that, Lucy only has one friend, and she, as I said, her love life is floundering. And the other character, whose name quite escapes me, the radio host, even though he hosts a love, the show I think is called Lovelorn, radio show where people call in about their issues with love relationships. He doesn't really believe in romantic love, so you read a book like this, you kind of know where it's going, but it's a really enjoyable read for me, and a book that I kind of need after reading some of the stuff in Legendborn and Brave New World. And the fifth book I read part of this week is the Complete Tales of H.P. Lovecraft by H.P. Lovecraft. I'm currently reading the Dream-Quest of Unknown Kadath, which I guess is probably a novella. It's pretty long, but very enjoyable. As I said in my last video, I am now enjoying the Lovecraft stories I'm at the way I did in the previous reads, so reminds me of what I did like so much about him and his stories. Next, I want to talk a little bit about a readathon I decided to take part in. And that readathon is the Celtophile Readathon. The creator and host of this readathon is Nicole at Nicole's Bookish Nook. And I'm just going to say a little bit about the readathon, what Nicole said about it, because we're only the 8th, certainly there's time to join. And Nicole, I like the way she does readathons. Her Spooky Scary Skeleton Halloween readathon is the only one that I really, I would say, succeeded at, because she really does, like, her requirements are they're very wide ranging. You have a lot of leeway what you do. She does have a definition of what Celtophile reads, and I'm going to include, that link in my video. And here's the guidelines. Number 1, you can do all 7 of the Celtic themed reading prompts or half of them, or just a few of them. It's up to you. You're still considered a participant in my readathon and a co-host too. There's no requirements to read 7 books. This is a very chill readathon. No requirements to be a participant or a co-host, not even videos. You as a participant or co-host can post about this readathon anywhere and at any time. There's no required postings. There's no Discord or private Facebook group for this readathon because I do not have the energy. So if there are any private groups that pop up, I'm not affiliated with those groups. You can start with any of the prompts. You can start with any of the prompts. You do not need to read in numerical order. You can DNF books. Most importantly, read at your own pace. This isn't a competition, so there are no awards. The co-hosts are Philip at A Poet Reads to Write, Elaine at Cobalt Dragon, and Margaret at Margaret Pennard. And the prompts are: read a book with a green, red, orange, or all 3 cover. Read a book written by Morgan Llewellyn, probably pronounced wrong, sorry about that. Read a book written by a native-born Celtic author. Read a fiction or non-fiction book about Ireland. All time periods welcome. Read a Celtic fantasy novel. Read a fiction or non-fiction book about Celtic myths, legends, or tales. Read a Celtic historical fiction novel. Okay, here's the books I'm going to read. The first is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The first is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is a Hunger Game prequel, and it satisfies it as a green cover. I'm torn between whether the lettering is white or gold. If it's white, it satisfies 2 of the prompts. I was going to count this, but I shouldn't really count the sticker. But it satisfies anyways because it has a green cover. This is double duty because I want to read this book to be able to read a book in another readathon I'm part of. Or read a book. I want to read this book so I can read a book that's going to come up soon in a Fable book club that I'm a member of. The second book is Only the Stone Survived by Morgan Llewellyn. Nicole, what she said about Morgan Llewellyn was quite interesting. Apparently she was quite popular, but she's kind of fallen back a little bit. So it's I just picked this book. It just looked interesting. That when I looked at bookshop.org, didn't look at it in depth. It looked interesting. And I'm going to read a book for the 6th prompt, The Mammoth Book of Celtic Myths and Legends by Peter Beresford Ellis. And I'm going to read a kind of related book. Nicole is going to read the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series. Actually, I believe Nicole is reading the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series. She might have completed it already. I should know that because I just watched a video where she talked about it. But this is peripherally related because she said that this book takes from Celtic myths and legends. So I decided, since that's the case, I'm going to read the 2nd book in the series, which is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Worlds by Heather Fawcett. So it's peripherally related, so it doesn't really count in one of the prompts, but it's peripherally related. Realistically, I'm going to start these 4 books. Possibly I'll complete something, maybe not, but I'm going to start the 4 books for this readathon. So, as I said, hopefully there's plenty of time this month. We're only on the 8th, so if anybody else would like to join, Nicole does a great job making the prompts, and the readathon's really kind of open-ended, so you have a lot of flexibility. Next, I want to talk about the Wobbles I completed. This is a pair, Dai and Suki, the Lovebirds. I think that they came out pretty well. A little discrepancy in size, but I'm still kind of dialing in how tight I want to crochet. But I think they came out pretty well. Next, I just want to talk a little bit about other events in my life. Yesterday, which was March 7th, I had my 6-month appointment with my cardiologist. They gave me an EKG. Blood pressure was a little high. I suspect it's because I now have white coat syndrome due to the past few years, some health issues I've had. The doctor came in. He told me he's really happy with my LDL. It's 36. He wants to keep it below 50. So just keep doing what I'm doing, keep taking the medication. He did say that a few times a month, take my blood pressure, and if it continues to be high, they could give me an increase in medication, but I suspect it's because, as I said, white coat syndrome. Because I do measure it myself on occasion, it's been pretty good. So just keep doing what I'm doing, stay active. I don't have to see him for another year now unless there's an issue such as I have shortness of breath or chest pains, although possibly if I have those, maybe I should go to the emergency room, I don't know. But at the moment, I don't need another appointment for another year, so I'm really happy about that. I did release 2 videos after my last weekly wrap-up. The first was Your Best Shelf, a top 10 list and open invitation. The second was the spoiler tag. I'm trying now to release 3 videos a week. We'll see how that goes. And I do have some other ideas besides tags for the 3rd video. So we'll see how that goes too. I would be interested in knowing how your reading week went. Any books you'd like to recommend. Or anything else you feel like talking about, please reply in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. I hope you have a wonderful reading week, and I hope you have a wonderful week in general.